I visited a town with 7 rules. The last one, follow me home. I did not find that town by accident. I need to start there because that is the part that bothers me most now. It was not a wrong turn or a dead GPS signal or a storm forcing me to look for shelter. I looked for Santa Irena. I found the name on old travel forums, the kind that looked abandoned years ago. I was tired of crowded places, expensive goose houses, and towns built for photographs. I wanted 3 days somewhere quiet, cheap, and far enough away that no one would call me. The first comment said Santa Irena was perfect for resting. Small, clean, almost no tourists, with a simple inn near the square. Right below it, someone answered, "It is perfect, but read the room rules." I laughed. I kept reading. Other users repeated the same warning in different words. Do not ignore the laminated sheet. Do not laugh at the rules. The town is safe as long as you understand what safe means there. One comment, almost completely deleted, still had one sentence visible. If you feel someone behind you, do not turn around. I should have closed the page. But sitting in my room with the light on and an ordinary street outside, it all looked like an internet legend. It looked like people trying to turn an old into a story. So I made the reservation. Before I left, I saved screenshots of the comments because several links were broken. Some accounts ended in the middle of the sentence. One user said he had spent the whole night staring at the chair. Another wrote that the inn was safe, but safety there meant knowing which fear to feed first. Back then, I wrote those lines down like interesting details to tell later. Today, when I reread the screenshots, I realize almost no one said they had come back all right. They only said they had come back. Santa Irena barely showed up on the map. The app showed a county road, then a gray line, then nothing. A bus left me in a larger town, and from there I took a van that made the route twice a week. The driver did not ask why I was going. He only confirmed my name, looked at my backpack, and stayed silent the whole way. I arrived late in the afternoon. The town was pretty in an ordinary way. Low houses, clean sidewalks, a small church, trees lined around the square. A few windows already glowed yellow. The sky was turning orange behind the rooftops. The first strange thing was not the silence. It was the way people positioned themselves. A man swept the front of a grocery store sideways, never turning his back to the door. A woman crossed the square, holding folded clothes against her chest, although every house had an empty clothesline. Through a living room window, I saw a child sitting on the floor, staring at a closed wardrobe, as if waiting for it to ask permission before opening. Then the silence came. It was not small town silence. Small towns have distant dogs, gates shutting, low radios, a motorcycle passing once in a while. Santa Irena had none of that. People moved slowly and spoke softly, as if any sound might wake something sleeping inside the walls. The Santa Irena Inn stood on the corner of the square. It was a white 2-story building with green windows and a wooden sign hanging from chains. The owner was named Helena. Her hair was tied back. She wore a gray blouse, and her eyes looked as if they were checking whether I had arrived whole.
Are you Daniel?
I signed a guest book and tried to joke that the town was even quieter than the forums had promised. Helena did not smile.
Silence here is a kindness. Do not try to fill it.
I looked around the reception area while she took the key. There was no mirror behind the counter, where one would normally hang. The wall had a lighter rectangle, as if something had been removed in a hurry. There were no coats hanging either. Every piece of fabric was folded on low shelves. My room was on the second floor at the end of the hallway. Number 7. It was simple. A double bed, a 2-door wardrobe, a chair by the window, a small television, and a narrow mirror beside the bathroom. Everything was clean. Everything was too correct. On top of the pillow was a laminated sheet. At the top, in black letters, it said, "Room rules for visitors." I laughed to myself. I sat on the bed and read it under my breath. Rule number 1. Never leave clothing hanging in the corner of the room after 10 at night. If you need to hang something, turn the garment inside out, fold it, and place it on the chair because Santa Irena uses incomplete human shapes to test whether you are paying attention. If after you turn off the light, a piece of clothing looks taller than before, do not switch the light on immediately. Count to 10 with your eyes closed and ask permission, even if it makes you feel ridiculous. Rule number 2. If the wardrobe is open when you enter, close it before turning on the light. If it is closed, do not look inside after midnight. What waits behind the wood starts small. A dark crack, the smell of stored cloth, and the sound of a hanger swinging with no wind. Rule number 3. Do not sleep with your feet outside the blanket, even if the room is warm. If you feel something touching the sheet near your ankle, do not pull your leg back at once. Count to 7, move only your toes, and wait for the weight to move away on its own. Those who startle quickly teach the dark where they're still easy to touch. Rule number 4. If you hear someone calling your name from the hallway, look first through the gap under the door. If there is no shadow of feet on the floor, do not answer. Santa Irena learns voices quickly, but it still forgets how to pretend wait, and in that failure visitors usually gain a few minutes. Rule number 5. Do not stare at dark reflections for more than 3 seconds. Windows, switched off televisions, and mirrors after midnight do not show only the room. Sometimes they show what is trying to decide whether to stay in the corner, inside the wardrobe, or behind you. Rule number 6. If you feel someone breathing near the back of your neck, do not turn your head. Walk to the nearest light without running, without speaking, and without searching for a reflection. If you confirm that it exists, it stops being fear and becomes company. Rule number 7. When leaving Santa Irena, do not take any piece of clothing that spent the night hanging. Do not record audio inside the room, and do not tell this story while looking at a dark screen. Some things only need to hear your voice once to learn the way. I read everything twice. The second time, I laughed less. I still did not believe it, but there was something uncomfortable in the precision of those instructions. They were not grand prohibitions. They were too small. Clothing in the corner, the wardrobe, the blanket, a reflection, someone calling from the hall. Things everyone has feared for 1 second and then pretended to forget. I started unpacking. That was when I noticed the wardrobe. It was closed, but the left door seemed pushed out a little. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make me want to pull it open and check. I looked at the clock. It was 8:40. Before midnight is allowed. I opened it. Inside were 3 wooden hangers, a folded blanket, and a strong smell of old lavender. I tapped the back panel with my fingers as if I needed to prove something and closed the doors. Nothing happened. I went downstairs for dinner. There was only one other guest in the dining room, a thin man named Renato. He moved the food around without eating. He sat with his body turned sideways, his shoulders stiff, not letting his back touch the chair. He kept a cloth bag trapped between his feet, as if afraid someone might pull it from under the table. When Helena went into the kitchen, he looked at me and asked,
"Did you read it?"
I did.
"All of it?"
All of it.
"And you thought it was funny?"
I stayed silent. He nodded, as if I had answered.
"Everyone does. Just try not to laugh inside the room."
Why? Renato pressed his fingers into the edge of the table.
"Because it learns the sound of false courage."
I did not know what to say. He looked down at the bag between his feet. For a second, I thought I saw dark blue cloth inside, folded so many times it looked smaller than it should have been. Have you tried to leave? Renato opened his mouth, but Helena came back before he could say anything. He lowered his head and said nothing for the rest of dinner. I went upstairs a little after 10. The first thing I saw was my shirt in the corner. I had left that blue shirt on the bathroom doorknob. I remember doing it. Now, it was hanging from a small nail between the window and the wall. Empty, limp, and at the same time, looking like a very thin person standing with its face to the corner. I looked at the clock. It was 10:17. I remembered rule number 1. I took the shirt by the shoulders. The fabric was far too cold. I turned it inside out, folded it quickly, and placed it on the chair. One sleeve slipped and touched my wrist. I almost pulled my hand away. I tried turning on the television to break the heaviness in the room. The screen went blue for a second, then died. My phone had no signal. The Wi-Fi appeared and vanished, as if someone turned the router off every time I tried to connect. At 11, I decided to sleep. I turned out the light, lay down, and pulled the blanket to my chest. The room became dark in a way I had not seen in years. Darkness without streetlights, without headlights, without a city outside. That was when I realized the chair was empty. The shirt was not where I had left it. My eyes searched the corner by the window. For an instant, I saw a narrow shape there. Too tall to be cloth. The top tilted like a head listening. My hand went straight to the lamp. I stopped before switching it on. Rule number 1 said not to turn on the light immediately. I closed my eyes. I counted to 10. At number 6, I heard fabric sliding. At number 8, something light tapped the wall. At number 10, my own voice came out low. Permission. I waited a little longer and switched on the lamp. The shirt was folded on the chair, but not the way I had left it. Now the sleeves were aligned, the collar tucked in, the blue fabric turned inside out with too much care. I sat on the bed for almost an hour. I thought about going downstairs, demanding an explanation, leaving, but embarrassment held me there. I did not want to appear at the reception desk, saying a shirt had scared me. Near midnight, the wardrobe cracked. It was a small sound, with settling, maybe, then another, and another, as if someone were slowly dragging a fingernail along the inside of the door. I looked at my phone. It was 3 minutes past midnight. Rule number 2 came back in full. If it is closed, do not look inside after midnight. The smell of lavender spread through the room. Strong, dampened. Then I heard a voice in the hallway.
Daniel? Daniel, open for a moment.
It sounded like Helena. Relief almost made me answer. Almost. I remembered rule number 4. I went to the door, crouched, and looked through the gap. The hallway light was on. There was no shadow of feet. The handle moved once. Just a little. Then it stopped. The wardrobe cracked behind me. I did not turn right away. I kept looking at the door until the voice moved away. Only then did I look back. The wardrobe was still closed, but the left door was 1 finger wider than before. I spent the rest of the night with the lamp on. I woke sitting up, bluish light entering through the window. It was a little after 5. The shirt was folded, the wardrobe closed, the television off. The room had gone back to being only a room, and that bothered me more than if it had stayed strange. I went downstairs with my backpack ready. Helena was at the reception desk.
Leaving before breakfast?
I'm going to try. She did not correct the word. She only placed a key on the counter.
Not everyone needs to stay more than one night.
Why do you let people come here? Helena looked at the guest book.
Because some arrive even without an invitation. At least here they receive instructions.
Renato appeared on the stairs, pale, holding the cloth bag against his chest. He still did not let his back touch the wall. Even standing still, he left a narrow, watched space behind him.
Do not use the road before 6.
What?
Before 6, the town is still putting things away.
What things? He looked at his own bag.
The ones visitors pretended were not theirs.
I waited until 6:10. Then I left. The square had the same church, the same trees, and the same low houses, but something had changed in the path between them. The van did not appear. I tried opening the map. Nothing. I walked down the street I had arrived from. After 15 minutes, the square appeared in front of me again. I thought I had taken the wrong road. I tried another street, followed a sign marked exit, passed greenhouses, and kept walking. The church appeared again. The square. The inn. On the third try, I began paying attention to the details. The same grocery store always appeared on my left, but the man sweeping the door was closer to the entrance each time. On the first loop, he was on the sidewalk. On the second, inside the store. On the third, only the broom was visible, leaning by itself against the frame, as if someone had gone in too quickly to be seen. The exit sign changed too. Not its place. Its intention. The arrow pointed toward different streets, but all of them ended somewhere the inn could see me. When I stopped in the middle of the street, I laughed without wanting to. Renato was sitting on a bench. He still did not lean back. The bag was on his lap, tied shut with a tight knot.
It lets you walk a little, so you understand you are still inside it.
How do I get out?
During the day, sometimes, when it is done looking.
He did not answer. I sat far from him, but on the same bench. I did not want company, but I did not want to be alone either. Renato tightened his grip on the bag.
Did you bring an easy fear?
What does that mean?
Some people bring complicated things. Guilt, secrets, longing. The town prefers simple fear. Clothes in the corner. The wardrobe. A foot outside the blanket. A dark reflection. Someone behind you. Fears everyone knows and pretends they outgrew.
This cannot be real. He looked at the inn.
I said that too.
What is in that bag? Renato took too long to answer.
A shirt I did not bring.
The knot in the bag moved a little, as if something folded inside had breathed. Renato gripped it harder.
It spent a night hanging in my room. When I tried to leave it at the desk, it appeared in my luggage. When I threw it away, it showed up folded under my pillow. Now I hold it. While I hold it, at least it knows where it is supposed to stay.
At noon, I found an exit sign near a path between two houses. I followed it behind the town, past a wall covered in ivy, and saw a dirt road ahead. For the first time, I believed I had made it. Then I heard my mother calling me. I will not write her name here. The voice came from behind the wall, sweet and tired, using the tone she used when I was a child, and she searched for me inside the house. I stopped. My whole body wanted to answer. I looked at the ground. There was a shadow cast from the other side of the wall, but the shadow had no feet. It began halfway up the wall, far too long, as if someone were hanging on the other side. I took one step back. The voice changed. It became mine. The same voice I had used to say permission in the room. I returned to the square without running. The town already knew I was afraid. I did not want to teach it the size of that fear. Helena was sweeping the entrance of the inn. It used my voice.
It has heard you once.
I only said one word.
For some things, one word is a small door. But a small door still opens.
I want to leave.
Then you need to reach tomorrow without teaching it anything else.
I returned to the room before dark. Not because I trusted her, but because the streets were beginning to feel too deep. Windows held dark stains, even with the sun still low. On some corners, I saw folded clothes on empty chairs, all facing the same wall. In the hallway, my room door was open. I entered slowly. The room was almost lightless. The wardrobe was wide open. The 3 hangers swung with no wind. Rule number 2 said to close it before turning on the light. I crossed the room looking at the floor. The smell of lavender became so strong my eyes burned. When I grabbed the handles, I felt resistance from the other side. I pulled. The door shut with a dry thud. Behind me, the television turned on by itself. The screen was black, bright enough to reflect the bed, the chair, and part of the corner. I saw it for less than 3 seconds, but it was enough. In a reflection, the chair was not empty. Someone was sitting there with its back to me, wearing my folded blue shirt as if it were skin. The corner of the room behind the chair looked deeper than the wall allowed, as if a narrow corridor had opened there. I turned my face away before confirming anything. The television hissed softly in the dark glass. Without me looking directly, a nearly soundless voice seemed to shape my mouth. Looking briefly teaches too. I pulled the plug. That night, I decided to follow everything. I left the blue shirt on the chair, inside out. I closed the wardrobe without opening it. I covered the mirror with a towel. I placed my phone face down. I got into bed and tucked my feet under the blanket. At 10, I heard fabric sliding on the chair. At 11, the wardrobe began to breathe. The wood swelled and settled back with low groans. Each breath brought lavender into the room. At 11:30, someone knocked on the door. 3 knocks. Then Renato's voice.
Daniel, open up. I found the way out. Quick.
I got up carefully, went to the door, and looked through the gap. This time there was a shadow. 2 feet standing in the hallway. I felt relief. Then I noticed the feet were turned the wrong way. The heels pointed toward the door, as if someone had its back to me, but was speaking with its mouth pressed to the wood. I pulled my face away from the gap. Go away. Go away. I regretted it at once. On the other side, the voice went quiet. Then it repeated the words in my exact tone. The wardrobe stopped breathing. The shirt stopped moving. The whole room seemed to listen. I returned to the bed and covered my feet. That was when I felt the weight on the sheet near my ankle. A cold touch over the blanket. Rule number 3 came clearly. Count to 7. Move only your toes and wait for the weight to move away on its own. 1. The weight pressed down. 2. The crack of the wardrobe darkened. 3. Daniel. 4. I moved only my toes. 5. The weight hesitated. 6. Something slid downward, slowly, as if disappointed. 7. The touch disappeared. I stayed still, crying without sound because I finally understood. Those childish fears were not childish in Santa Irena. They were invitations. The town did not invent monsters. It waited for you to offer a shape. After midnight, the lamp began to fail. With every flicker, the room changed a little. The chair closer. The towel over the mirror lower. The crack of the wardrobe wider. The shirt on the chair taller. That was when I felt the breathing. Behind me, I was sitting on the bed, looking at the door when warm air touched the back of my neck. Slow, close, like someone breathing carefully so it would not scare me too quickly. My whole body begged me to turn. The brain prefers a terrible image to emptiness. It wants to know. It wants to confirm. It wants to turn threat into shape. Rule number 6 said not to turn. I stood up. The breathing stood up with me. The nearest light was in the bathroom. The switch was a few steps away, beside the door. I began to walk without running. The breathing followed every step. I passed the switched-off television. I closed my eyes before the black glass could give me an answer. Just look. If you look, it ends. I kept going. I did not answer. I reached the switch and turned on the bathroom light. The breathing vanished. Now I know. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the cold bathroom floor, clinging to that white light as if it were a person. When the sky brightened, I heard footsteps in the hall. Helena knocked.
Daniel, is there a shadow?
I did not answer. I looked through the gap. 2 black shoes facing the door. I opened it. She saw my face, then the room.
The road is open for a short time.
I took my backpack. I left the blue shirt on the chair. As I passed, one sleeve slowly fell, tried to touch my hand. I did not touch it. At reception, Helena placed a folded sheet on the counter.
For when you get home.
More rules.
Repetition.
Why don't you leave?
Someone has to remind visitors that there is still a correct way to be afraid.
And Renato.
Renato is still trying to return what he brought without knowing.
I thought of the bag. I thought of the clothing breathing inside it. I asked nothing else. The van was waiting in the square. The same driver asked no questions. I got in and kept my eyes on the road ahead. I did not look back. Not even when I felt someone sitting in the last seat. Not even when a light breath touched the back of my neck and vanished as soon as the sun struck the glass. I reached home late in the afternoon. My house greeted me with things too ordinary to be trustworthy. The crooked kitchen chair, the open book on the table, the charger near the outlet, the dark jacket over the chair in my bedroom. The jacket looked like someone sitting with its back to me. I turned on every light. I folded the jacket inside out and placed it on the chair. Then I laughed softly without joy because I understood that Santa Irena did not need to stay on the map. It only needed to stay in my habits. I showered with the door open. I did not use the mirror. I did not turn on the television. I ate standing up, facing a wall. When night came, I realized I was moving through the house from light to light. Only then did I open Helena's sheet. There was one sentence written by hand. Do not tell it while looking at a black screen. I should have torn it up, but I needed to warn people. That is what I keep telling myself. I say other people might find the forum. I say someone needed to know. I say telling it by audio with the screen turned down was not the same thing. But the truth is uglier. I wanted to pass the story on. I sat at the living room table. I turned the switched off camera toward the wall. I left the phone recording audio with the screen down. I began to speak. I told about the forums, the van, Helena, Renato, the shirt in the corner, the breathing wardrobe, the voice with no feet in the hallway. As I spoke, the story seemed smaller. It seemed like something with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Then I heard my own voice coming from the hallway. Low, calm, too calm. Rule number 6. I stopped. The phone kept recording. The whole house was lit, but the hallway looked longer than it should have been. On the wall, the shadow of the bedroom door formed a vertical crack. If you feel someone breathing near the back of your neck, do not turn your head. I did not turn. I still have not turned. I am writing this last part with my back against the living room wall. I thought that would solve it. I thought that if there was no space behind me, the rule would have nowhere to happen. But the breathing is still coming from behind. And the voice, which now uses my comm better than I do, just whispered that walls also learn how to open cracks.